welcome to the Deep Rooted Podcast. We are your hosts, Jeff and Rochelle. So glad to see you today. Excited for today's episode.
Yeah, so we're glad you're listening in. Hey, if you are turned on the news, if you're aware, the world's gone a little bit mad this past couple of weeks, and just even one of our daughter's friends came up to me the other day and said, "Do you know we're on the brink of World War III?" And I thought, a little 8-year-old is concerned with what's going on in the world and trying to understand what is happening. And I thought, I am too. And so, it kind of has gotten us thinking. And we've been talking about, what do we do with evil in the world? And now, and the reality is, and I think we have to get this settled, as followers of Christ, if you are watching and you follow Jesus Christ, if you've surrendered your life to him, you know that at one time you were once evil. You know that you needed a savior, that your heart wasn't good and just needed to be cleaned up and made a little nicer. No, we've all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, all of us. And so we see today in the world that we live in that evil still exists in 2022. Yeah. Evil people still exist in 2022. And it's not just some dictator who's invading a sovereign country. It was once me.
Yes. And that's, when we say that, we're like, wait a minute, but that is such good news. Because if we think that
You're like, how's that good news?
We're not evil, then what we say is there's no need for salvation. There's no need for Christ. But Jesus came, died for us. He called us. We accepted him. And we are new creations. Okay, so we're no longer, as we come and follow him, we're no longer have to live the evil ways. So that's the good news.
Yeah, I know.
But we once were, and so we have to wrestle with the fact that we were born into a sinful nature.
So I think it's good. According to what we see in the news, we understand that there is still evil in this world. And so just to give you a little background, kind of what the last couple of weeks have been like in our home, our oldest daughter has been studying the Holocaust. I've been reading on some of this, following along with what she's doing, but also reading some new books. And I came across a book that really encouraged me. And I'm not going to share necessarily all about the book or what, but this book was called My Brother's Keeper. And it was talking about 30, some of them I had heard before, but largely most of them were unknown stories, to me at least, of Christians who literally stepped up in the time of World War II when the attempted extermination of all the Jewish people in Europe was happening. And you hear like 30 stories of heroic Christians who really put their own life on the line. And so it was such an encouraging read to me because, of course, it's awesome to see people stepping up and doing all of that. But it encouraged me in a larger sense that no matter the evil around us, that God is still raising up a remnant. God is still raising up people. He's done it in the past. I was reading about those 30 stories, but he is still doing it today. So no matter what evil is happening in the world, we don't have to get beset by the evil.
No. This is why God has the church in the world.
Absolutely.
The church is in the world, not to wait for the end.
Just to hunker down or whatnot.
The church is in the world. We are salt. We are light. We are preserving force. God has us here to push back the darkness of evil. That's our job. Not to be escapists, but to run to where the danger is at, rescuing people, Jude says, as if rescuing them from the flames. And so God is raising up that remnant. That's exactly why we are here.
So if you lately have been feeling maybe overwhelmed by all the events in our world, or you think, oh my goodness, we just got over COVID and now we have to deal with the threat of all these wars and all the fallout that can happen from that. I mean, we even know people who have relatives in Ukraine and dealing with some of these kind of things. The events of the world should absolutely drive us to pray. So I'm definitely not discounting that. We need to be people of prayer who are praying for God to intervene, but also we don't need to get thrown off track. We need to understand in the times of crisis, in the times of evil, which is, by the way, all the time.
All the time. Yeah.
God is raising up a remnant of believers. And I've been asking myself lately, what does that mean for me? How do you want me to be different? How do you want me to be changed in the evil times that we live in? And I think this just relates to every part that we live in. It's not just, well, I don't live in Ukraine, so I'll just pray. Well, I may not live where the bombs are going off, but I do live where social bombs are going off, trying to kill my children, trying to steal their future, trying to steal their mind, trying to direct their path. And I'm going to be a mom who's going to do everything in my power to protect my children, to be raised in the fear and admonition of the Lord, and hopefully be lifelong Christ followers themselves. And so how do we do that? We have to have courage.
Oh my goodness.
We have to have courage, even in the midst of whatever we're going through, in the midst of the evil that we find ourselves surrounded with.
Let's not get weak. God wants us to have spines. He wants us to be bold. He wants us to be courageous. He wants us to be strong. And that's why God has us here. So I don't know. I want to encourage you, parents, followers of Christ. I want to encourage you, be bold, be strong. I don't know. I just feel like we can't hear that enough.
Absolutely. I think, if we focus on the evil, I think we'll lose all of our strength.
Yeah, we will.
I mean, we can become anxious. We can become distracted. Maybe we can become like glued to the TV. I don't know. I mean, whatever. If we get focused on the evil, but if we focus on, okay, God, what do you want me to do as a result of what you're revealing to me?
I mean, James says
that gives us direction.
Consider it pure joy, my brothers, whenever you face trials of many kinds. We're not going to get out of trials or endure trials by focusing on them, but having joy in the midst of them and allowing God's Spirit to give us the strength to navigate that. You've been called to the environment you've been called in, whether it be your work or wherever, to expose the evil and to navigate that, to deal with that, and to ask for God's presence in the midst of that workplace. So
absolutely. And I think by having that type of courage, by being bold, being strong in what God is telling you to do, it will impact other people. I'm not going to tell all the stories of all these 30 people. If you want to read it, get the book.
What you're telling me, though, it is
well, I would
powerful.
I'd be done with one of the stories and I'd call you and be like, listen to this story. I mean, it was like, oh, this is so powerful. But one of them, I just want to share a snippet. Yeah. So there's this pastor and his wife in the southern part of France, and during World War II. And it's remote enough that it's not like in a major city. They're several hours from Paris. But they're like a tight-knit community of strong believers. The pastor, and he had an assistant pastor, and at the time, and they literally pastored this whole community. I love that. I love hearing that. They would go and visit the different homes. I mean, and it was a village, but it was sort of spread out. I mean, a rural area. So he had to travel to different homes and he'd check on things. Well, if you are a student of World War II history, you know that France was not one of the first countries to be occupied, but it was overtaken by the Nazis. And so they recognized that things are happening. And obviously, the Jews from France are going missing, being deported. And so this pastor says, no, not under my watch. And so one Sunday morning he comes in and he preaches the two greatest commandments. He says, you're going to love the Lord your God with all your heart, and then with your soul, mind, and strength. And then you're going to do the second. You're going to love your neighbor as yourself. And he presents right there to his congregation what's happening. Yeah. And I mean, it was immediately the congregation to just rally together. And so they came the next Sunday and they began to rescue Jewish people from the area, from a whole underground network that they had. And so he would stand up in the service and kind of use a code word. He'd say, I've got a couple of Old Testaments. And immediately the first week, a farmer stands up and says, I'll take them. And literally this community hides hundreds of Jews through the whole war. Well, come to find out, the Nazis begin to hear about this. And so they come and arrest the pastor. And when they come to the house, the wife is there, and the Nazis come in, and she says, well, he's not here, he's at a youth meeting. Which is cracks me up. Because as a pastor. I'm like, of course, yeah. Like, he really was at a youth meeting. I mean, but it just kind of cracks me up because it's like, of course, you had some meeting or whatever. And so the wife's like, hey, you want to stay here? Like, hang out here, Nazis, for my husband, which I think is so powerful. And so the guy comes back and they said, we're going to, arrest you. We know what you're doing. And he says, okay, well, I'd like you to stay for dinner.
Oh, this is...
So his wife sets the table for the four of them. There's 2 Nazi soldiers and then him and his wife, and they feed them dinner. And one by one, word has made it through the community that the pastor's being arrested. And one by one, people start coming to the door to give him provisions. So like somebody's coming and bringing candles, and somebody's coming and bringing fresh baked bread and chocolates. And I mean, just all of these kind of things. And the soldiers begin to weep. They said, we've never seen anything like this. And he goes, I think, the pastor says, I think I have everything I need except for some matches. And the Nazi soldier goes, here, you can take mine.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it's just so powerful. So that he leads them out to the Nazis lead the pastor out to the car in the street. And he walks out, and literally his entire congregation has lined the streets right near the vehiol. And they're singing, what was the song I can't even remember. It's like an old hymn. Yeah, I can't remember. It's not coming to my mind, but what a mighty fortress is our God.
Oh, yeah.
And they're singing. I mean, I'm like bawling reading this. Goodness. And he spends a couple of weeks in jail, and then they let him out. Like, I mean, but the Nazis, as they were doing this, they said, we have never seen anything like this.
This is the gospel right here.
Exactly. I'm like, I'm telling you, it messed with me. Like this story, because it's not your courage, like that pastor, that courage to say, we're gonna not just love the Lord our God with just our heart, but we're gonna like love our neighbor as ourselves. We're gonna put ourselves on the line. We're gonna do it with ourselves. We're gonna put our words to action.
Yes,
and it impacted an entire community. And not only the entire community, but hundreds of Jewish people, lives were saved. And the generational impact of that is unknown. I mean, I don't know how you could even measure that. And what I'm trying to say with all of this is that while evil may be rising, God is raising up a larger remnant of people who are saying, no, I'm going to stand I'm going to be subversive to the evil.
That's the word that came to mind, because God has called us not to be accommodators of culture, but to be subversive of culture. He's placed us here, really, in some sense, to be underground as we're living our lives, as we're doing our things. People see us as maybe good-natured people, kind people, and that's wonderful. But we're here to subvert
the kingdom of this world.
The kingdom of this world.
Which is evil.
And let me tell you, the kingdoms of this world, American culture, all of world culture will be overcome by the kingdom of our God.
Yes, and I'm saying this pastor got it.
He got it. The congregation,
everybody else got it.
And it was a community
That's what I'm saying. Like, his life impacted a whole community, and then it saved people. I mean, I don't know how much more of the gospel we could say. And it's not just a story for 1945.
Yes.
It's a story for 2022. Evil still exists in 2022. Evil people still exist in 2022.
Yes.
And they're not just dictators. They could be people that are all around you.
Yeah.
Evil people still exist, but we aren't supposed to have our eyes focused on that evil. Our eyes are supposed to be focused on Christ, saying, what do you want me to do as a result of it? I don't live according to that. I live here. How do I subvert that culture?
Because the evil people want the attention.
That's right.
Evil wants the attention. Don't focus on the evil. Don't focus on the evil people. Look to Jesus. We watched a short documentary about this story, and one thing small that really stuck out to me is that the community, they found ways to even like have fun in the midst.
Oh, absolutely.
There were snowball fights happening.
Oh yeah, there was like moments of joy.
I think sometimes we think in increased stress and just evil, we have to so focus on that to hunker down.
Yeah.
And I can understand where there's the temptation. But in the midst of that, God wants the peace that passes all understanding to guard our heart. So we can have joy in the midst of suffering.
In the midst of evil,
in the
which is the
midst
world we live in.
of
Yes.
evil,
Yes.
so that we thrive in it.
Yes.
That's why God has us here, to show other people that there is another way. And it's really simple to love the Lord with our heart, soul, mind, and strength, and to love our neighbor as ourselves.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really as easy as that.
And I'm telling you, it'll change whole communities.
Yes.
I really believe that. Change generations. And so evil is happening. It is. And unfortunately, I think it's going to only get worse, the evil.
Yeah.
I mean, it just is. But what kind of person are you going to be in the midst of it?
Yes.
Who am I going to be? What am I going to live out? Am I going to live out fear, or am I going to live out the gospel? I think that's really powerful.
And if your house is built on the rock, the winds are going to come, the storm's going to come, but it will not move.
Yes, will not be shaken.
Will not be shaken. So
hopefully this was an encouragement to you. I feel encouraged just myself. So hey.
Well, if you feel encouraged, I feel encouraged.
I was like, okay, yeah,
We're praying for all of you in this time, and let's not forget to have joy in this time. Let's not forget to look to where our help comes from. Praying for you. Hey, hope you have a great day. We will see you next time.